There's a man making $42,000 a year who will argue harder for a billionaire's tax break than he ever argued for his own raise. You've probably met him, maybe at work, maybe at Thanksgiving, maybe sitting in a garage drinking cheap beer while defending a guy with 3 yachts and a private jet like they grew up on the same street together. And the strange part is, he means it. He'll defend a billionaire who's never heard his name faster than he'll defend himself after 20 years of overtime. Most people look at that and think one thing: he's stupid. But I don't think that's what's happening. I'm Hank, and if you think this is just politics, it isn't. Politics is just where it leaks out. Underneath it, this is about identity, about hope, about what a man needs to believe after 30 years of waking up before sunrise, working through bad backs and bad bosses, and telling himself it's all leading somewhere. That's the part nobody talks about. Some people don't defend billionaires because they love billionaires. They defend them because they still believe the door might open for them too. Maybe not yachts and private islands, but freedom, relief, a life where one broken transmission doesn't ruin the month. And once you understand that, these arguments start sounding very different, because now it's not really economics anymore. It's a man protecting the story that keeps him going. I knew a guy years ago, I'll call him Doug, worked shipping at a warehouse outside Dayton. Quiet guy, good worker, brought lunch in the same faded blue cooler every day for about 12 years. Doug wasn't poor exactly, but he lived close enough to the edge to feel it all the time. One hospital bill, and the year changed. One layoff rumor, and suddenly nobody in the warehouse was sleeping right. But anytime somebody criticized billionaires, Doug took it personally. Not emotionally. Personally. Like somebody insulted his family name. And for a long time, I didn't understand it. The billionaire doesn't know you exist. Why are you fighting for him like this? Then eventually it clicked. Doug wasn't defending the billionaire. He was defending the idea that the billionaire life was still possible. Because sometimes, a man emotionally attaches himself to the future version of himself he still hopes to become, even if he's nowhere close yet. So when somebody says the system is fake or the rich don't play by the same rules, he hears something else entirely. He hears, the dream you built your life around may never happen. That's a hard thing for a man to hear after 20 years of getting up in the dark. America runs on one idea more than anything else. Work hard now, get rewarded later. Doesn't matter if you're exhausted right now. Doesn't matter if your knees hurt. Your checking account looks thin, and you haven't had a real vacation in 6 years. The story says eventually it pays off, and people need that story more than they realize. Because if hard work leads somewhere, then suffering has structure. The missed birthdays make sense. The second shifts make sense. The bad knees at 50 make sense. Trust me, my left knee reminds me of that every single morning. You're building toward something. But if the system is unfair, if the ladder moves while you're climbing it, that creates a different kind of pain entirely. Because now, a man has to sit with a brutal possibility. What if I gave the best years of my life to something that was never really designed for me to win? That thought breaks something deep in people, especially men. Men are taught very early that dignity comes from endurance. Keep going. Don't complain. Carry the load. So when somebody says the game might be rigged, some men hear it almost like an insult to their entire life. And if he admits the system is unfair, he has to grieve the years he spent believing it wasn't. Most people think poor people defend rich people because they admire money. Sometimes. But I think a lot of the time, they admire what money seems to represent. Stability, certainty, the feeling of finally being untouchable by small disasters. The billionaire becomes symbolic. Proof somebody made it all the way out. Proof the American dream still exists, somewhere outside the factory gates and overdue bills. That matters psychologically, especially to exhausted people. A billionaire walking around saying, "I built this," becomes emotionally important to a man whose entire identity is built around effort. If that billionaire earned it, then maybe effort still matters. Maybe discipline still counts for something. Maybe all those years weren't wasted. That's why criticism of the ultra-rich can sound strangely personal to somebody struggling financially. Because he's not hearing criticism of wealth. He's hearing criticism of the belief system holding his entire life together. He's defending the story that keeps him going. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. In America, people don't just see wealth as success. They often see it as character. Rich becomes disciplined, smart, valuable. Poor becomes irresponsible, lazy, failed. Even when reality is way messier than that, you see it in small moments. The businessman, in the expensive jacket, gets listened to more carefully than the tired guy in work boots standing beside him. A rich man is called driven. A struggling man is called bad with money. And once a culture starts treating wealth like proof of personal value, defending rich people starts feeling almost automatic. Because now criticizing the wealthy sounds like criticizing success itself. That's why some working-class men talk about billionaires, almost like athletes or war heroes. Winners, killers, men who figured the world out. They don't just see money, they see the ultimate exit from the grind. And then there's another layer underneath all this. Pride. A lot of men would rather stand beside power than identify with weakness, even if that power would never stand beside them back. Because admitting the system hurt, you can feel humiliating. Especially for men raised on the idea that self-reliance is everything. I think that's why some people react aggressively anytime conversations about inequality come up. Not because they love billionaires so much, but because they hate the feeling of helplessness. They don't want to see themselves as victims. So psychologically, they move toward strength, toward winners, toward people who seem untouched by fear. Most people don't protect power because they have it. They protect it because they hope power means safety. Maybe that's you. Maybe it isn't. But once you notice it, you start seeing it everywhere. Here's the part nobody says out loud. If a man finally accepts the system, may not work the way he thought it did, he doesn't just lose optimism, he loses explanation. Suddenly all those years become emotionally complicated. The overtime, the swallowed pride, the constant patience, the nights he came home too tired to really talk to his kids, the years he kept believing that if he stayed loyal and worked hard enough, eventually life would loosen its grip a little. He starts wondering whether he sacrificed for a future that was never really built for people like him in the first place. And that thought hurts more than people realize. because human beings can survive struggle surprisingly well. What destroys people is meaningless struggle. That's the real tension underneath these conversations. Not taxes, not politics, meaning. A man needs to believe his suffering built toward something. Otherwise, the weight of it changes completely. I don't think most working class people defend billionaires because they dream about private jets. I think they defend the idea that the door is still open, that a regular guy can still become somebody powerful, that effort still matters, that the years weren't wasted. And honestly, there's something deeply human about that, even if it blinds people sometimes, even if it keeps them loyal to systems that would forget their names 5 minutes after the factory closes down. Because hope is difficult to surrender, especially when hope is the thing making the long hours feel survivable. He doesn't really want to defend the billionaire. He wants to believe the dream still has room for him, somewhere inside it. So tell me in the comments, do you think people defend the rich because they admire them, or because they still hope to become them someday? And if you want more videos like this, not politics, not motivation, just the psychology behind money, status, and how people actually think, subscribe. That's what this channel is.